Hello everyone. Today's session is about version control in CentreStack. So to talk about version control, it's a per tenant and a per user concept. So on a tenant basis, you can enable the version control, and also on a per user basis, you can enable version control. So typically when the tenant was set up to be under version control, all the users under the tenant will be under version control as well. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to create a tenant. So this is a multi-tenant system here. You don't have to. You can have one single tenant if you want to. So it becomes a enterprise edition, but you can always have multiple tenants. So it's a multiple tenant solution for different service providers. So you can see one of the options there is to force version control, and it's a default. By default, it's checked, and I would recommend you keep that flag checked when you create tenants. It's always good to put a tenant on a version control system and enable that. So after the tenant was created, so I logged off as the cluster admin. So now I'm logging in as the tenant. So it's a newly created tenant. So if you haven't done the tenant creation before, I would recommend you go ahead and create one so you can see what's the user experience. So I'm going to go ahead and create a test folder. So because the tenant itself is 100% under version control, so you're not going to see the version folder legend because by default everything is under it, right? But if, let's say, the tenant itself is not created under version control, then individually you can still enable folders to be under version control. So that's to make make it simpler. So by default we make it under version control. So what I just did is I deleted the file. So because it's under version control, so it's just easy, very straightforward to undo the deletion. So now what if I drag and drop the same files and folders and a little bit more to the same folders. So when a same file is uploaded twice, then it's going to create the second version, a third version if you keep on modifying the files. So you can see 3 out of the total files here, 11 items, are having a second version. So those files are double uploaded. So typically you're not going to create a second version of the JPEG file, unless you're doing image editing, but most of the time it will be like Word documents and things like that you modify every time when you're working on it. So what if we just go ahead and delete the whole folder? So the whole folder is under version control. So to undo the deletion, you just click on the folder and do an undelete, and the undelete can be recursively done to all the subfolders. So if you got files and folders under version control and then they were accidentally deleted, so not a big problem. You just go to the admin portal and then just revert the change and bring the folder back. You may still create some scares, for the users when they're collaborating on the folders, but as an admin user, you can quickly and easily bring it back. So we are talking about version, so it's kind of, if we don't talk about retention policy, it's kind of not a complete story about version control. So you can control your own policy here. You can keep, how many versions you want to keep, when to purge a file. Keep how many records, keep how long the change control log you want to keep, so you can customize a lot of the parameters here. And the editing paradigm is you click on the edit button and then you can apply the changes. So that kind of we learned that from let's say iOS editing paradigm. So That's retention policy, and you can see the revision history for each individual file. So as a summary, this is version control in CentreStack. Thank you.